So welcome back. We're looking forward, Bez Hashem, to begin a brand new epistle. Chav Beis, we finished Chav Aleph, and I'd like to say again in introduction that this is one of the chapters, one of the epistles, which, as an example, the Alter Rebbe doesn't mention the idea of tzedakah. We mentioned that there are quite a few epistles in this Igeres HaKodesh segment that the Alter Rebbe does not mention this mitzvah of tzedakah, and in what context are we saying this? Because we spoke about this many times, that the backdrop of Igeres HaKodesh is definitely, as we know it, and we had a full presentation in Perek Yud or in Igeres HaKodesh Yud, a kind of detailed presentation of the whole backdrop of Igeres HaKodesh, that it's about the Alter Rebbe, or the significant majority of it, and the underlying message, the thread which threads across the Igeres HaKodesh is predominantly the mitzvah of tzedakah. Based on this backdrop, the Alter Rebbe is campaigning for this group which made Aliyah, the famous Mendel Horadoker. Alter Rebbe considered him as a Talmid Chaver, a Chaver because they were both Talmidim, disciples, students of the Magid of Mezrich, but he was the oldest, and the Alter Rebbe was the youngest. He considered himself a Talmid Chaver, and he made the famous Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael. They were going through a very difficult time. They settled in Tzfas and in Tveria, and the Alter Rebbe was campaigning heavily for, among his Chassidim, in the whole region where the Alter Rebbe lived and led, and again, the far out spread, in other words, in the entire region, White Russia and so on, and collected serious money to send over to Eretz Yisrael in order to provide for this group. So, Igeres HaKodesh, many of the letters, and again, to say this, that the underlying message of the entire segment of Igeres HaKodesh as a whole is about the mitzvah tzedakah. And again, we're bringing many psukim, Maimoni Razal, and explaining it through the prism of Teres Achsidus, and ending it up so eloquently and beautifully with that mitzvah, bringing out another dimension of the mitzvah tzedakah, and of course encouraging that people give, and they give generously. For that matter, this very chapter, the very segment that we concluded, was again, you see towards the end, and the Alter Rebbe was referring to this very campaign, that the shluchi derachamana, they were called, who went around and literally collecting from city to city, town by town, and Alter Rebbe was talking to the giver to make sure to give even more frequent than they had planned to. This is all part of that campaign. So we did mention quite a few times that despite the overall Igeres HaKodesh, what threads through the entire Igeres HaKodesh is predominantly mitzvah tzedakah. There's certain prakim that Alter Rebbe doesn't mention the mitzvah tzedakah. That's what we mean. Because Igeres HaKodesh, yes, anybody who learned Igeres HaKodesh could right away appreciate that it's namely about that mitzvah, and it's namely about this campaign of the Alter Rebbe. But together with that, it's not every single perek. It's not every single chapter. It's not every single epistle. It's not every single letter. This is one of them. I don't even think the word tzedakah comes up in this whole entire segment. No. The Alter Rebbe, in this very segment, this very epistle, speaks about it's pretty much divided, as you can see, and deals with different matters, very fundamental, very basic, about people going to a Rebbe to receive a bracha. He negated it for that matter, even though on the overall he continued to give brachas to his chassidim and to whoever came, whoever made his way to the Alter Rebbe as a lover of Am Yisrael, as a leader of Am Yisrael, as a lover of Am Yisrael, continued to help, to provide, to give blessings. But he mentions that in the end of the day, a person, when he's in need of a blessing, to submit himself to the source of all blessings, which is the Almighty, to scrutinize his behavior, to introspect, to see where things are lacking, to find them. Amari Razal would speak about certain ideas. It says Yifash Bish B'Maisef, to look into your deeds, and if not, Yitula B'Bitl Teira, the person not learning Teira as much as he could learn Teira, as an example. Fix situations, and understand that Hashem doesn't just throw a curveball at you in vain. He's a loving Father, and try to develop and enhance profoundly this relationship with Hashem. You'll see that whatever He's doing to you is coming from a very soft place, a very good place, a very healthy place, a very kind place, a very loving place. Like a father to the son. Again, we're going to see it inside, and therefore react in accordance. Realize that the Eibishter Hashem is connecting to you very deeply, and when you react and in that same reciprocal fashion, you will see things will come around. And if you look at it in that and appreciate matters for what they are, you will see that everything will unfold in a very positive way in reality, meaning to say things will change and things will evolve, and Lashon of the Alter things will ultimately sweeten out in a way that the toiv, the good, will be manifest, b'teva nirav anigla, apparent, and revealed good, and so on. Then the Alter Rebbe speaks about the idea of how Avodas HaTfilah, all in the same epistle, how a person has to devote himself into the service of davening to Hashem, which is the Avodah of Tefillah. In what way a person has to devote himself to this very unique service. And then the Alter Rebbe says that if you want to have a successful davening, you have to make sure there's no pirud, there's no separation, there's no divisiveness between one yid and another. Like, don't try to daven to Hashem if you have that issue and that divide between you and another yid, because that it's about has to be a seamless heart between you and another yid, which allows your heart to awaken with Hashem, to become which is the whole idea of davening, a person connecting himself with Hashem on a very deep and heart level, an intimate level. So if there's a fragmentation of your heart with another yid, that would disturb that heart expression with Hashem. I mean, this is incredible words, and again he finishes that we shouldn't even think negative about another yid. Again, we will see, but there's a number of few ideas. So first of all, getting back to this, what we said before, it's doesn't follow the pattern, let's say, of the previous epistle, in a way that it's totally distinct, and not in the context of the overarching message of Igeres HaKodesh, the idea of tzedakah, again, for this very campaign. So to see the backdrop of the Holy Igeres HaKodesh, this Holy Igeres HaKodesh, again, we said we had a full presentation in Yud, which is 11 back. It's a click away wherever you're watching it, but as we mentioned, the place where you could see all the previous chapters, including this Perek Yud, is on the original website, tanyaonline.com, tanyaonline, one word.com. And for that matter, all the classes are lined up in this fashion. In other words, from the very beginning of Tanya, you have all the classes lined up on this site, that is. And Alter Rebbe cross-references many times. It's always easy to access those places where Alter Rebbe tells you, look, where this which Alter Rebbe is presently explaining, and he's sending you there, that he's in that place where he's sending you, that he expands on this very topic. So this is another advantage. When we learned, Alter Rebbe says, look into Shayich Demuna as an example, or Likutei Amorim. So with this site, because everything's lined up and in quite an organized manner, there's from top to bottom, it's just a matter of finding that chapter and opening it, and there's a separate scroll bar for the actual text, which is easier to follow and to find the place corresponding to this which Alter Rebbe is sending you to. In other words, the separate scroll bar is an advantage. You just open up the scroll bar and see the text, and that would you figure out where it's spoken about. And as we said, we as well periodically cross-references in a similar, again, nothing similar about us of the Alter Rebbe, but in the way the we certain areas which the Alter Rebbe already explained this in detail and in elaboration. So we learned something, and we just send you to that area. Look there, and you'll be able to appreciate it much deeper and much better. And that's the advantage of this website, because everything is lined up on the left side of the screen, and it's easy to access, very easy to access. So we begin this letter, which let's just read it together. Which one of the ways, in general, we see the Alter Rebbe as a true shepherd, a true leader. That it says the way Moshe Rabbeinu. It says where Hashem meet Moshe Rabbeinu by the burning bush. So the Medrash says it wasn't just Moshe Rabbeinu was pasturing his sheep, but one sheep left the herd, and Moshe Rabbeinu went after it and picked it up and put it in his bosom to bring it back to the flock. That's when Hashem showed up with him, and Hashem says, I like that. I want you to be, I'm looking for somebody who has that deep connection for every individual, not only of Klal Yisrael, like the famous expression, but even of Rebbe Yisrael, that individual Yid, which is hurting and needs help and needs assistance, needs the Mani Yisrael to look after him, which again was a metaphor for that experience that Moshe Rabbeinu was sure to bring in one sheep into the fold. Not say, I have the Klal Yisrael, let you go wherever. You ran away yourself. You're culpable. You did this deliberately. You did this advertently. You went away. So go find yourself another way. You won't make it, because here's where the good stuff is. You went away. It's your problem. I am with I remain with the Klal Yisrael, with the masses. No, that's not a Mani Yisrael. Mani Yisrael, the Rebbe, the individual is significant to him, and that's when Hashem showed up by the burning bushes, when Moshe Rabbeinu picked up, left the herd, went after the sheep, picked up the sheep, put it in his bosom to bring it back. That's when Hashem appeared to him in the burning bushes. That's the leader I'm looking for. So you see in the Alter Rebbe, besides that, in individual attention he gave every Yid who came to him, and even those who didn't come to him. In other words, that personal and personable connection. With Alter Rebbe as a Mani Yisrael, the Gemara says Moshe Shaprika. There's no third generation. There's no Moshe Rabbeinu. Alter Rebbe was the Moshe Rabbeinu in his time. Therefore, so we find that connection, Alter Rebbe to the individual, and then equally when he speaks to the masses, he comes across so affectionate. Like the Alter Rebbe can't start the letter and I have a message to tell you, no, Ahuve, my beloved. Achai, my brothers, V're'ai, my friends, Me'ava mesuteres, from hidden love, Techachas megula, which means an open rebuke, open chastise, but again, coming from a very healthy place, from a place of deep love, right? A father doesn't chastise his friend's son. He doesn't rebuke him on a normal basis. He does to his own son. And again, he disciplines the son, of course, a healthy discipline. We're not even talking about an unhealthy discipline, a healthy discipline. He disciplines his own child, not the neighbors and not the friends. Why not? Don't you love your child even an edge more than the other? The child of your neighbor, of your friend, and him, you're not rebuking, you're not chastising, you're not disciplining. And your son, your own child, you are. You got your priorities kind of not in place. Apparently, it should have been 10 many folds over. This is your biological child, and therefore you should demonstrate much more love, and never to rebuke, never to discipline. No, the opposite is so true. Because you love your child, that's why you're disciplining them. That's why you're educating them. That's why at times you even rebuke them, because you love them. Shlomo Melech says, the one who prevents the stick, when you prevent the stick, and again it's a metaphor for discipline, you're preventing discipline, you hate your child. Because a true loving father disciplines a child. So Alter Rebbe says here, I love you. I'm my beloved, my friends, my brothers, my friends. But from a deep love, I'm opening up a techachas, which means a rebuke, a discipline. On the surface, it's megula. The discipline is revealed, meaning to say it's on the surface, but nonetheless it's coming from a very deep love. So the Alter Rebbe, and we know the Alter Rebbe didn't just express himself in a way. Okay, let me just be the nice guy and start a letter like this because I have a lot of important stuff to say. When the Alter Rebbe wrote Ahuvai, meaning to say he loved every individual he wrote that letter to. And he called them my brothers. He really felt that they are his brothers. Vereya, he felt that they are his friends. He truly felt Alter Rebbe would never put ink to a paper, to a parchment, if it wasn't 100% authentic. So you have a loving, brotherly, and friendly rebuke. It's a whole different story. Avam Soteres, he writes, it's coming from a very deep love to Chachas Megula, an open and revealed rebuke, discipline framework over here. Which on the surface could be quite pointed, one way or another, of the message of the Alter Rebbe, but it's coming from Adam. It's coming very deep love, from a brotherliness, belovedness, friendship, which is so telling. You start a Geras HaKodesh like that. The whole message takes on a different perspective, a different point of view. Of course. And it's so much easier to follow. Like when you see a discipline coming from a caring individual, a loving individual, truly loving individual, as a brother, as a friend, so then, okay, I'm ready to hear it, I'm ready to move along, because I see there's love in every expression of this discipline, of this rebuke, and so on. And remember, we're talking about the Alter Rebbe. What is the Alter Rebbe? Let's have it out. Is the lashon of a pasuk. We say it in Slichas, this pasuk. Hashem says, let's have it out. And in this case, the Alter Rebbe writes, let's have this out. Let's dissect this matter. Zichru, you may say, remember the days of yore. Binu shneiz der v'der, the understanding, binu lashon bina, of the years of the generations in the past. Oh, was there such an idea that you have an issue, you run to a Rebbe? Kind of, it's like sacrilegious, meaning to say, a Rebbe is there for to give chassidus, to learn Torah with the people, and what are you coming to talk about matters, gosh, mystic matters? And not that I have a problem. I'm not saying, I'm an ishruchni. I'm a spiritual individual. Don't talk to me about your need, your physical need. That wasn't the message of the Alter Rebbe. Of course not. Alter Rebbe says, from your perspective, I'm trying to educate that you on your own to develop a very healthy relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And once you do that, perspective will change. You'll understand when your fancy is tickled, if you will. It's the Eibishter himself trying to enhance his relationship with you, and therefore you're experiencing that. So look into it on its own. Don't drop the message which the Eibishter is trying to convey to you, and by that enhance his relationship with you deeply, and ignore that. Let's go to the Rebbe for bracha. So when someone came to Alter Rebbe for bracha, he gave him a bracha. Of course, he was the Alter Rebbe, and it's famous. Alter Rebbe's meifsim, Alter Rebbe's brachas were fulfilled immediately because he was the Alter Rebbe. But he's trying to educate a klal adas chassidim that know that there is that Hashem, whatever he does, is there to establish a healthier relationship with the Yid. And when you look at it like that, you'll kind of make sense of certain ideas and try to work it from within not to just run and get a bracha, which again, those brachas will work. But if you'll do it from within, you will see a certain perpetual type of deep relationship with you, a dignified and a delightful perpetual relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because you're realizing the message and you realize HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Tevelet Tevleitu. He's a loving God, and therefore He's not there to bother you, just to hurt you. He's there to enhance the relationship with you and Him. So take it the way it really is. Alter Rebbe with this page is overall educating and beyond whoever learns Tanya. So again, Nishgizalu said Nishgizalu with Kim brachas. He didn't, shy away from giving you bracha. He gave many brachas, and every one was makoyim. But Alter Rebbe felt his mandate is beyond that, not just to give brachas to people, to educate a generation, and with that generation to continue to educate the next generation through this Sefer Tanya, and through this Igeres, and for perpetuity. So here the Alter Rebbe begins, and even then when he's doing so, he begins, my beloved, my brothers, my friends. And he right away jumps into it. He says, where do you find this custom? In any of the Sfarim, the books of the sages of yore, which were the past Chacham Yisrael, the wise among Yidden, may it be the first or the last, meaning to say, it's not only Rishenim and Achreinim like in the say Arishein and Achrein. No, it's the idea that at the beginning of time, the end of times, there wasn't such a thing. Lias Minig was seeking. Sorry, Lias Minig was seeking, which means a proper. Sorry, I'm reading this wrong. Lias Minig v'tikun. Pardon. Minig v'tikun, a custom and an established way. Lishel, going forward, Lishel be'itza gashmis, to ask, to seek from a tzaddik a suggestion, a consultation, which is associated with a physical kidas malas, is what to do in this physical world, about his job, vocation, meaning where he should go live, where he shouldn't live, or other questions in his life associated with his physical state. Alter Rebbe basically saying, for me, there's two things over here. He doesn't say this clearly, but he says, I'm here to serve a purpose to enhance your spiritual state. So you're coming over to me. He brings a story like Shaul. Shaul Shmuel was a prophet, and Shaul was meant up to meet with Shmuel because he lost his oxen, and Hashem orchestrated all this that he should meet up with Shmuel until Shmuel should ultimately. Or Shmuel should anoint him as a king Melech Yisrael, which he was the first formal king among Am Yisrael. So how did it begin? That he was looking for his oxen, and it wasn't even in the realm, it wasn't in the proximity of Shmuel HaNavi. And the whole idea was to come to Shmuel HaNavi. He said, did you see my oxen? Shmuel HaNavi would have the answer him. And eventually he said, Oneichi Haraya. For that matter, that expression Hashem did not appreciate. But in the end, he is the seer which is able to tell Shaul where his oxen are. But that is belonging to the Navi. Alter Rebbe says, my mandate is to teach you Chassidus. A mandate is to teach you another Perek Tanya. A mandate is to get you excited about Avodas HaTfilah. My mandate is to get you excited about Limud HaTorah. To come and to travel, to find out Lishel Be'etz HaGad Minig V'tikun, as a custom, so to say, in an establishment, Lishel Be'etz HaGad means to seek and to ask about a physical or a suggestion associated with a physical kidas malasis binyani elamagashmi, to know what to do in this physical world, or like people ask the Alter Rebbe, should I open this business? Should I travel this time, not too many times, this time a week to make my parnasa? Should I do this? Should I open up such a business, another business? Should I live here? Should I live there? He says this is not the mandate of a tzaddik, especially a tzaddik, the Mizit Shemagit's Talmud. The the mandate of a tzaddik, especially someone like the Alter Rebbe, the Miyasid of Chassidus Chabad, I'm here to teach you Chassidus. Come to Liyashna where the Alter Rebbe is, and the Chassidim did by the tens and the hundreds and the thousands and beyond that. And they came to learn Chassidus, and they came to be Mekabel, the Alter Rebbe's unique way in Avodas Hashem. And Alter Rebbe basically say, that's what I'm here for. To come to travel to me to find out where you should live or what kind of business you should do. Or that particular deal, should you do that? You shouldn't do that. That's not what I'm all about. And he said, did you find it in the years of yore that this was a custom? People should go to a tzaddik to find out about this physical state? No. A tzaddik had his mandate. Now, remember again, I say this again, if someone did come to tzaddik, you think the Alter Rebbe, to the Alter Rebbe, you think the Alter Rebbe is, you're in the wrong place. I just wrote you something, I wrote you a letter, and you're coming still asking me? No, and we know it evidently. Alter Rebbe continued to accept people, give them good suggestions. Of course, the suggestion of the Alter Rebbe, yes, in the physical realm, on the physical matters of physicality, of course, worked and helped and provided, and it was blessed. Or someone asked the Alter Rebbe for a bracha begashmias. He was going through a tough time. Business was bad. You think? When I came into the Alter Rebbe's room and said, did you see the letter I just sent and please leave? No, it wasn't like that. The Alter Rebbe was a loving man in Yisrael, and he gave brachas, and the brachas were mekuim, but Alter Rebbe is giving an overall message. This is part of educating his chassidim. He says, did you ever see this? And again, back to the he says, again, as we said before, the Rishonim is not the Rishonim and Achreinim. Rishonim means those who are there from the past, and Achreinim are a little more recent. But Alter Rebbe here, he says clearly, Rishonim like the Tanoim, which remember the time of the Tanoim from the Alter Rebbe was about 1,000 years before, give or take. Excuse me, much more, of course, much more. Rebbe lived about 300 years ago. The time of the Tanoim was about 2,000 years ago from today. 1,900 years ago. Alter Rebbe was like almost a decade, I said, a millennia and a half, and he speaks about even the Tanoim, of Ameroim, which they were called Roz Loyonas Lahu. He said no secret was prevented from them. They saw it all. And the paths of heaven was open to them, which the average person doesn't know what's flying on the heavenly level. So how could he talk about giving? How could he give a bracha? You don't even know that. You don't look at a yid and see his counterpart, and I mean to say his state, his portfolio on high, and to see from the heavenly prison if he's deserving for this blessing or if he should receive this blessing. Whatever a tzaddik can see, it says for that matter, a tzaddik. And I think the word that says from the time of Arizal or the Baal Shem Tov, I forget which one, he says, a tzaddik looked at a yid, he was able to see his entire past, his entire present, what's going on with him, with one look, skira achas, and his entire future. That's a different vision. That's like a total different world. He says, if there's a tzaddik, says the Tanoim, he says, Nihirin on Shvirin Diraki, in the past, the highways on high, the highways in heaven were bright and open for them, and they saw everything. The Ameroim, and how much more so the Tanoim. And people didn't come to them to deal with they should deal with their physical issues, if it's they needed a bracha, or namely what to do, what kind of parnasa they should do, or any question which is associated with life's questions. You dealt with it. You have the rules. You have the parameters. You have the Shulchan Aruch. You have people who are in this field that you could mityaetz, you could discuss matters, and especially people who want your good and want your benefit, and the people are experts in a certain field. You talk to them and you ask Hashem that it should work, and the Eibush will send you the blessing. Don't cross country to go to find a Tana, which is here to teach you Torah, which they were the establishers of Torah Shebal Peh, and even Ameroim, which came later. But again, the establishment also of Torah Shebal Peh in the style of Gemara. and start talking to them about your physical state. No, they were the Tanaim HaMiroim, which brought Torah to the world. They were there to establish Torah Sheba'al Peh. Of course, Torah Sheba'al Peh they used to give Moshe Rabbeinu and Har Sinai, but to concretize it, to anchor it, which is the whole Talmud which we have in front of us, telling us exactly what Moshe Rabbeinu heard in Har Sinai, dissecting with the 13 Midas HaTerideshim. They were there to establish Torah Sheba'al Peh. So what are you going to ask them where your oxen are? In the time of the Nevi'im, which they were called prophets, that's what part of their mandate was. They were great tzaddikim, and they were also here to teach, to educate Das Hashem, to educate their generation and all generations. They were the Nevi'im, how to tap into HaKadosh Baruch Hu, learning Torah, doing mitzvahs, and again, that's what their mandate was, to show Am Yisrael the way to go derech ha'ila beis kel, to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That was also the mandate in Nevi'im, but nonetheless, they additionally had a mandate to be the Navi among Am Yisrael, that it prophesies for the masses, meaning to say for the collective, but sometimes prophesies for the individual as well, which is again classically the story of Shmuel and Shaul. That Shaul went to Shmuel to find out where his oxen are. What Shmuel say? I'm here to teach you Torah, or maybe I'm only a Navi for the collective. When Am Yisrael has a question, I have to say the prophecy. No, Shmuel Navi was a Navi for the collective, for Am Yisrael as a whole, but also for the individual, as it was so evident from this story. That Shaul's going, traveling, and taking that time to come to how far he was, whatever it was. But in the end of the day, he wasn't in the area, the zone of Shaul. He went and he traveled to Shmuel to find out where his oxen are. Yeah, that's also the mandate of a Navi, but exclusively to a Navi. Not to a Tana, not to a Meira. Not to later Tzaddikim, and not to himself. He's there to teach Yidden the Lukus, like it says by Moshe Rabbeinu, that his mandate is to teach Das Hashem. As Alter explains famously, Men Beis, Lukuti Amarim, you see that it's a beautiful Pedic. Every Pedic in Tanya is beautiful. It's not a right stem. Every Pedic in that, but it's Alter's explanation there. The mandate of a Moshe Rabbeinu to teach Das Hashem. It's not a matter of information. It's about transformation, bringing that transformative appreciation of a Lukus Das Aliki Avicha B'Avdei V'Shalim. Laman Das is Ha'om. He's there to bring Das to the nation. Leida Gdul Hashem. They know the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. La'avdi B'Lei B'Nefesh. To serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with heart. So that's the mandate of a tzaddik. Says the Alter Rebbe. Ki'im, to the exclusion of Nevi'im Mamash. Nevi'im Mamash, they had a separate mandate, the Shahil Fim Yisrael, which they were before, in other words, in the past. Like Shmuel, the seer, which Shaul went to him. He was a prophet. Shmuel was a prophet, as we know. That Shaul went to seek his. He went to Shmuel, Lidreish Hashem, to seek a Kodesh Baruch Hu Asainis Shenevdul Aviv, based on those. For that matter, it's Asainis is donkeys. Sorry, it's donkeys. The donkeys which were lost to his father, and then again, he went to seek Hashem. He went to see the seer Shmuel. He didn't know who Shmuel was. He asked Shmuel, "Did you see the Reya?" Shmuel says, "Anoichi Reya, I'm the seer," and he told him. And eventually, the whole point was that he should meet up with him. He should be able to tell him that he is anointed by Kodesh Baruch Hu. Kodesh Baruch Hu orchestrated this from before that, and he even told Shmuel that Shaul is coming to you. But on the simple plane, this is what happened. Shaul is seeking to see the seer of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In other words, seeking to see the Navi to find out where are the donkeys, what his father lost. And Shmuel Shmuel HaNavi would answer him. Because Shmuel was a Navi. But the Amiroim, Tanaim, that wasn't their mandate. And so too, these tzaddikim are there to teach Leman Das es Hashem Lavdei B'Lev Shalom, how to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with the heart. That's their mandate. The Tanya was to teach Torah. Everybody has to teach Torah, teach Tefillah, teach the whole Derech HaMitzvah, the whole package. That's the mandate of Gdei Yisrael. So the Rebbe asks, like, what is it? Where did you find this custom? To travel to a Rebbe to find out, Licha Binyoni Ha'elam, and worldly matters, physical worldly matters. The only ones who dealt with that were the Nevi'im. The Rebbe continues, so what's the person supposed to do? So the Rebbe goes on, she's be'emes, kol inyonei odom levad midi v'ritei v'yirashamayim enu musavim. He says, on the overall, all man's needs, all matters associated with man, the human being, in this case the Yid, except words of Torah and Yirashamayim, which means God-fearingness, the only way you could capture it, the only way it could be appreciated, meaning to say someone to connect into your physical state and guide you and lead you and direct you, is a Navi. Even when it comes to physical, but that's the Nevuah. Anything to the exclusion of Torah and Shemaim, because the Torah, of course, the Navi could provide as well. He's a tzaddik. To be a tzaddik, to be a Navi. But namely, the tzaddikim are there predominantly to teach you Torah, to teach you Yerushalayim. And anything else is associated, anything with your physical state is only Minusab, only Nevuah. With prophecy, yes. Leil chachamim lechem, as it says. So there's a simple idea, lechem lechem, it says we find in history that the wise, not necessarily they had that abundance of parnasa. So that's the generic meaning. Leil chachamim lechem. You see it evidently around, or you look around, you see not necessarily the very wise have the broadness in parnasa, they have the broadness in their livelihood. Many times it's just the opposite. You see some very foolish, and he's a dropout of high school, as we see even today. The biggest companies in the world were established by dropouts. The ones who made it through high school, they became doctors and are making a parnasa, a nice parnasa. Can't compare it to the big multi-billionaires which they started something in their garages. The lechem, that broadness of parnasa, not necessarily belongs to chachamim, let's face it, to the wise. But the Alter Rebbe brings it over here, brings the leil chachamim lechem. A chacham is a talmud chacham. A chacham is a tzaddik. I'm not here to talk about your bread. I care for you because I'm a yid, and how much more so, many more folds. By many more folds, I'm a tzaddik. Of course, I care for you, but it's not who I am that you should ask me about where your parnasa, where your bread should come from. I'm here to teach Torah. I'm here to educate, to guide, to lead, to establish Yerushalayim in the individual and by the collective. Teach them how to daven, teach them how to connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what the Alter Rebbe is. That's what the tzaddik is there for. Leil chachamim lechem. You want to lechem? Go to Navi. Now, one of the reasons why the Alter Rebbe, just to point out, one of the reasons why the Alter Rebbe continued to bench Yidden and his brachas were mekoyim even after this letter, as it's famously known, because at the end of the day, the Alter Rebbe was a Navi. Tzaddikim, Talmidei Abal Shem, Talmidei Magid, they were on the level of Nevi'im. They had the Ruach HaKodesh, which even though it says in a number of places, there's a difference between Nevuah and Ruach HaKodesh, but in the overall, they were on that stature. And therefore they continued to bench, and the brachas were mekuyim. But again, it's not a contradiction, because the Alter Rebbe is saying what I'm here predominantly for. I was sent to the world, like the Lashon over here, L'lamei das es ha'am. The Chachmei Ha'eda, right? Chachamim lechamim lechem. Chachmei Ha'eda, Einei Ha'eda, the eyes of the congregation, the eyes of the community, L'lamei das es ha'am, to teach knowledge to the nation, Leida Gdulas Hashem, to know the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, La'avdi B'lev, to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to arouse within you, to educate you how to serve Hashem with heart and soul. That's why I am. Leil chachamim lechem. Because I'll tell us that everything is in the hands of Hashem. Everything. Where your parnasa is going to come from, and everything in the package of Bona Chayim Mezein Ervicha, which is children, health, marriage, parnasa, everything is in the hands of Hashem. Yerushalayim, the fear of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's up to you. And that's you can come to me. I will teach you and I'll educate you how do you be a Yari Shamayim, how to have true, genuine, authentic fear of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We know Avos Hashem, Yiras Hashem is not a badge. I'm a Yari Hashem. You're a Yari Hashem? Other yeah, other nish. Maybe yeah, maybe not. I mean, every Yid, by default, is a Yiras Shamayim. He lives formally like from a Yid. So of course the Yid, there's Yiras Shamayim. But to say that your heart seated, the heart is in awe of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You feel the reverence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu at all times. I don't know. So who's supposed to establish that? You're supposed to establish that. And when you have the Yiras Shamayim, of course, it refers to the extension of the Yiras Shamayim, because then a person is really careful with his actions, his speech, his thought, vision, audio, because you fear HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so you're very careful not to chas v'shalom violate. That's what Hashem says not to do. Who does that depend on? You. So let's work it together. Come, you'll hear Chassidus, we'll learn Torah together. Our Rebbe gives over Torah, gives over Chassidus, gives over matters of Yiras Shamayim, educates a generation, and eventually a tzaddik, as like that, it's not generation, but all generations from him, how to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I'll write you a Tanya, the perfect manual of Tanya. Come, let's learn Tanya together. Ideal. That's what I'm here for. Because this is up to you to establish your Yiras Shamayim. Good, let's work it out together, and I'll teach you and I'll educate you. In order you to have the tools in order to be a Yari Hashem. The rest of the stuff, it's not dependent on us. It's not dependent on you. It's all in the hands of Hashem. And more so, Shivadvarim Mechusim, 7 things are hidden from man. He doesn't go through all 7, but one of them made of them. Mistaker, people came to Alter Rebbe and said, what business should I go into? Shmatas? Or maybe some diamonds? Or sell fruit, sell vegetables? Be a baker? A butcher? Because you need a parnasa, right? You're not doing it just out of hobby. You need a parnasa. He says nobody knows, but memi stuck. A person can't figure out what type of parnasa they're going to have. You make an attempt. You go through the natural channels. You know these very natural channels are also channels of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem is the creator of nature, just like he's the creator of the supernature, of the miracle. So he created nature for you to navigate the opportunities by nature and ask for the Eibishter that is to be a bracha and you make a parnasa. Because in the end of the day, parnasa is a means to an end. You do something and then you have good friends and experts in all these fields. See what you're inclined to do, see what you think you're good at, and make it happen. And then go to shul and ask Hashem that it should work, and the Eibishter will make it work. Nobody knows. You have to have a Navi could tell you what your parnasa is meant to be. But we're not in the business of being a Navi, even though the Rabbi and Talmidei Hashem had Ruach HaKodesh. Again, there are so many places that speaks of the difference in Nevi'im and Ruach HaKodesh, but in the overall, they did have Ruach HaKodesh. And they knew very much, many of this, what's the word away from Parnasa, and Alter Rebbe gave brachas, like we just said, because you had Ruach HaKodesh. And he loved every single Yid, and even a Yid which probably read this letter, he continued to give brachas even after delivering this letter, and the Chassidim, of course, learned this letter. And if they came in and they slipped in the Alter Rebbe's Yichidus, and I'll ask the Alter Rebbe for a bracha, or a suggestion what to do with the parnasa, of course the Alter Rebbe gave them. But the overall, he says, we don't deal with it. It's something which is a heavenly decision. Yiras Shamayim, that's your decision. Let's work it together. Let's figure it out together. Come, we'll teach you Tanya. Come, we'll say Avotei Hashem Maimer. Come, we'll teach you how to daven. Because that's what you can do. Hakoil, the rest, B'dei Shamayim. And look at one of these things, Malchus B'David Masitachzir. When's Mashiach going to come? That's a question going on from the beginning of time, as we know. When is Mashiach going to come? Mashiach has to come already, right? So that the Rebbe, our Rebbe says, Kol HaKitzi, and all the end times dates are done, and Mashiach has to come now. He's coming now. The Rebbe testified, this is the last generation of Golus, the first of Geula. But on the overall, it was one of the biggest mysteries of all time. Mosai Malchus Beis David, the kingdom of David, which is again Melech HaMashiach, that is Mosai Tachzer, when Mashiach is going to, the kingdom of David, to be translated exactly, is going to return, means to say Mashiach is going to come, in one of the biggest mysteries of all times. And this is one of the 7 which is documented together with one doesn't know where the parnasa is going to come from. So you're coming to me to find out something which is a mysterious, as he says, the fact that they were equated one with the other tells you how it remains a mystery, meaning to say it's something so deep within the on high, how you're going to make your parnasa. And Hashem says, do the regular hishtadlus, do it right. Make sure that you have, say, a capital tilla maybe before you speak to that expert or that one who's suggesting you what business to go into, and it'll all work out. But it's not a reason why to come to me. And again, the fact, hishvu zelazeh, the fact that they were equated to each other, this is just like, this is a mystery. Your parnasa is a mystery also, if I'm not a Navi. Well, as we said, Al Tereba continued to bench, but in the overall, he's educating us, and again, as Al Tereba is going to do in this very chapter, he's going to teach you a lesson in this very context, in this very matter. He's going to teach you how to go about things. It says in Yeshaya, referring to the tzaddik, that he's somebody who is a suggester. He's somebody who is a planner with you, meaning to say a yoyetz meloshin eitza, someone who gives good suggestions. That's what a tzaddik also. He's chacham choroshim. Not sure how this the chacham choroshim. I have to look at it. I don't know why I don't remember. I remember getting stuck. But the point is that he's saying, I mean, it's nothing to do with the pshat over here, and the message of the Torah. Isn't the tzaddik also called, like it says in Yeshaya, he's a yoyetz? He's there to provide good suggestions for you. And so too, it says in Pirkei Avos, Chazal tells us, when it comes to Talmud Chacham, people appreciate a good suggestion and a good help. That who was a Talmud Chacham as well. So apparently this seems to go against this. Al Tereba said that Talmud Chacham is only about Torah and Yireh Shamayim. But it says yoyetz, and it says meneni mimenu and Pirkei Avos eitzav v'shia, a good suggestion and a good assistance. Comes Al Tereba and says no, it's not a matter of assistance and suggesting you what type of vocation you should accept, what type of job you should invest in. It's not the eitzav v'shia, and that's not the yoyetz v'chamarot charoshim. The Eitz of Sashia is B'divrei Torah, which we know Torah is called Tushia. And Chazal tell us, Yoyetz, Torah is called Tushia. Again, this actually Tushia has different meanings. Tushia also has the connotation of weakness, because Torah brings a weakness. So the overall Torah gives kayach, Torah gives blessing, Torah gives longevity. Torah is the source of all blessings, Torah is the source of everything. But nonetheless, it says it brings Tushia. It says it brings Tushia to this, which is contrary to Torah, because this is the Koich of Torah. In a number of translations, it says Torah and Torah being called Tushia. So he says, when it says it's a Tushia, that we benefit from the Talmud Chacham, a good suggestion. No, it's also in Divrei Torah, because Divrei Torah was called Tushia. That's what the tzaddik is all about. And when you see that it says there in Yeshaya yoyetz, look, it's not the yoyetz again, what business you should go into. One who's consulting, some consulting with you, what business you should go into. And so too, when it says nenim and eitzav v'shia, it doesn't mean in its generic form, the Talmud Chacham is there that you could go get a suggestion from him, what job you should accept as an example. What should you invest your life in? No. If you look deeper, Eitza Shia b'divid Torah, which is called Tushia. And that's the precise expression. Tushia, Torah is called Tushia. So then Eitza, even the Eitza is associated with the Tushia, which is again divid Torah, and therefore back to what the tzaddik is all about, that the Rebbe's message the tzaddik is all about. They teach you Torah, they teach you a derech and avodas Hashem. Chazal tell us, Yoyed Zesh Yoyed Yedidei Labashanim. What is a Yoyed? Someone who knows. Again, back to the expression of Yoyed. So the Chazal tell us, what is a Yoyed? Someone knows who to do Ibur Hashanah, which is again a very complicated subject. As we know, we learn a part of Kiddush HaChodesh, of the Rambam for that matter. Whole chapters and a few chapters of the whole phenomenon of Ibur HaChodesh, and very briefly to say, Ibur Hashanim, very briefly to say, we know every 19 years there's 7 leap years, which we call Shneis Mubores. The reason why they're called leap years is because they have another full other in them. Why do we have this Shnas Sanu Muberes? Why is there such a phenomenon in Torah? And the answer is because Torah says that the Pesach has to come up with Chag HaAviv, and Sukkot, and Chag HaKotzir, so to Shavuos, and so on, which is really an extension of Pesach. And the idea that Torah says very explicit that the Yontif has to, for example, Pesach has to be celebrated in the time frame associated with Aviv. So therefore, if you let the calendar go year by year without adding another month, we would celebrate Pesach Sunday in the middle of summer, Sunday in the middle of the winter, beginning of the summer, time which we must celebrate Rosh Hashanah and so on. So what does the Ibur Shiyar do? We add another month so the sun and the moon could rebalance themselves. And again, as we know it, that every year we celebrate Pesach in the same epoch, in the same time frame, Aviv, Sukkot and Chag HaKotzir, and so on. Shavuos Chag HaBikurim. And it's perfectly going on for thousands of years, never a change. Why? Because we have the Shana Muberes. Adding a month. How many years? How many times do you have to add a new month? So the cheshbon is over here is every 19 years. There's another Ibur Yard. It's 2 years apart, 3 years apart, as we see it. And that subject is a very complicated subject because there's so much to know. When are you Ma'aber the Shana? For what reason they Ma'aber the Shana? What does the Chachamim meant to see in order to establish the Ibur? When do they do it? When do they decide? Who decides? Is it the Nasi has to be with them, or it is so many details associated with Ibur Hashanah? They have to know a lot of the calendar. When to be Ma'aber the Shana. So for today, we have it already pretty much established. We have the whole calendar established for famous Yilva Zokin. And the establishment is 7 times every 19 years. But in the yesteryears, it wasn't like that. It was all dependent on a lot of details of when they had to be Ma'aber the Shana. It wasn't something locked in like you could know already exactly in 15 years, in 20 years, in 30 years when there's going to be Ibur Hashanah. Then it was done based on a lot of facts that had come together, and you look at it again in the Rambam Milchas Kiddush HaChodesh, and there was a lot of knowledge over here. So when you say Yoyitz, says that Azal is Lidei L'Ibur Hashanah, and then so too Likvei Chadashim. Likvei Chadashim is also to establish the actual month. Does a month have 30 days, have 29 days, as we see it on our calendar? And it was all based on today we have again the calendar, but in the yesteryears it was based on the Eideria. People come and they said they saw the moon, and there's so many details associated with that. So you have to be wise, you have to be well established, well learned, well anchored in halachas of Torah. That was the Yayitz. So not in its generic form, the Yayitz, someone suggesting you how to build your business. No, if you look at Chazal, Eitza Tushiyas, again, Yayitz is someone knows the Dabar L'Shanim B'Chadashim, again, all in the framework of Torah, which we know the Seid HaIbur is called Eitza, and Seid B'Lashon HaTorah is called an Eitza, and it's called the secret in the words of Torah, in the expression of Torah. You see the Sanhedrin, like it says in Sanhedrin, that pays Ein Sham Perishashi. In Sanhedrin, the 87th page, looking in Rashi, and Rashi says that the Ibur, the secret of Ibur, is called Eitza and Seid in the Lashon of Torah. So therefore, whatever you're going to bring me, these two proofs you're going to bring me, the Chachamim are called Yoyatzim, or Neni Mimene Eitzav Sishin. That's all remains in the world of Torah. Not otherwise. So now the question, of course, begs, what is a person supposed to do when he comes into so this dead end? He's having issues. This parnasa. So I thought he's going to make money by having in a krechma on a state of a vicious parrots, and he thought that things are going to be good, but then the weather changes, people stop patronizing his inn, and he has to pay the rent, and he goes by in 1 month, and another month, there's no rent, and he starts getting threats, and God forbid, Chman Slan, God spare us, especially in the Este years, when these Pritzim took advantage, very Jew, and they hurt them, they bothered them, they hurt their families. There wasn't establishment like it is today in democracies. You don't touch a family member because you're upset at, so to say, culpable, as an example. And they chased and they pursued and they persecuted and they caused so much. And again, this is in one area, one field. Or someone had a mill and it didn't work and he wasn't selling enough flour and then he got caught up. Chayvus and debts, and what are you supposed to do? Crush a person's life. How's a person meant to function? So it's the natural thing, go to a Rebbe. People again went to the Rebbe. Not the Rebbe gave them brachas, but in the overall, based on what the Rebbe is saying here, that's not what a tzaddik is there all about. What the tzaddik is all about. So what are you supposed to do when you run into an issue? Especially a grave issue. The Alter Rebbe says, I'm going to continue to educate you in this field as well. And I'm going to tell you the emes. Agid l'sheimimli. I'm going to tell you, for those who listen to me, ki avo mekalker. We should stop over here, but we're going to just see, basically what Alter Rebbe is doing over here is, he is saying, and even in this area, which I'm telling you, the right thing is not to come to me, to treat me like the Navi, or identify me as a Navi to tell you what to do, was his message over here. But together with that, I'm not dropping the situation, ignoring your situation. I'm going to be the Alter Rebbe to educate you in this very area as well. So let's just a few lines, just begin just to see what the Alter Rebbe is begin the Alter Rebbe's meant to understand what the Alter Rebbe is educating the Yid, which has problems in his physical state. And the Alter Rebbe is telling him, I'm not the Navi who's meant to be fixing it, even though again he continued to give brachas, but in the overall. But I'm not going to just leave you out hanging. Nah, just wait to just come here. Whatever's going on with you doesn't matter. No, I'm going to educate you in this field as well. As he says, the truth, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to relate to those here. Your love breaks the row. Now this expression is famously said about Avraham Avinu. Shura is the chain of command. It says when you love, you break the chain of command. That's the generic meaning of this expression. Again, in about Avraham Avinu. What does it mean? Avraham Avinu loved HaKadosh Baruch Hashem. Says, Kach nos bin chazotek Yitzchak, which you waited 100 years for. And it's his only son, again, from Sarah, from his dear Sarah, which was the patriarch. The matriarch, of Am Yisrael. Not Hagar, was Sarah Imenu. And they waited, Sarah Imenu waited 90 years, Avraham waited 100 years, and what he went through in order to receive Yitzchak. And then David tells Avraham Avinu, take this Yitzchak and bring him as an altar in Har Moriah. So Avraham Avinu, first of all, could have argued with HaKadosh Baruch Hashem, what's up? This doesn't seem right. No, he didn't say that because of Avraham Avinu. Hashem says, bring him up. There's an altar, a carbon. That's what he's going to do. Eventually, we know it was a test. They just said, bring him up. I didn't say slaughter him, and therefore bring him up. You could bring him down. Again, that was the test of Avraham Avinu, the important test, and the final test. Which Avraham Avinu proved his inner connection, his deepest, intimate connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that nothing would budge. Doesn't matter what Hashem tells me, I'm going to do it for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's how Avraham Avinu was. But nonetheless, 3 days to Har Moriah, slavishly sleep in that morning, don't sleep in, but do things regular. You're going to do it, but don't get so excited. There's no reason it should excite you, and it defies all the odds of this, so to say, what you understood of the same Almighty just prior to this command. So do it, but don't. No. Avraham Avinu loved Hashem so much that Ava Mekalkel Zashura, which we see that he himself saddled his donkey. Remember, we're talking about Avraham Avinu. He's 137 years old at that time. Avraham Avinu had an easily chain of command. He was considered to be called a nasi, a leader, a king even. Back then he was called a king, before even Yitzchak was born. Si'alikim. Shame told him. In other words, after they came back from the war with the Malachim, he was a leader. Now, a leader needs to saddle his horse. He tells his accomplice, I'm leaving at 3:15 as an example. Yashkim Avram Baker woke up early because he was so enthusiastic to do what Hashem wants. Even though something didn't sound right about it, doesn't matter. I love you, Hashem, so much. I'm not asking questions. Not only that, he gets up early. What is everyone getting up earlier? He gets up. I mean, if he got up 4 o'clock, does he have to get up 3 o'clock that morning in order to take his son, to bring him as a sacrifice to someone he waited 100 years? And as we mentioned the other week, it wasn't just a biological connection, which there was, probably. But to Avraham Avinu, what meant more than that is who's going to be his successor. That is going to promulgate, and going to demonstrate and continue with the message, the monotheistic message, which Avraham Avinu worked so hard in creating to a pagan in a paganistic world. And Yitzchak was supposed to be a successor to carry forth the torch of Achdus Hashem, the oneness of HaKadosh. That's what bothered Avraham Avinu much more than anything else, because he's Avraham Avinu, he's a Merkava to Lukus. Doesn't say anything, but at least get up in the same time you got up. If you got up for your shir at 4 o'clock in the morning, so get up 4. Nope. Avraham Avinu Yashkim, I got up earlier. Why? Because in this command coming from Hashem himself, I love you, Hashem, so much, so I'm going to get up earlier in the morning. And other ideas, the Medrash tells us, Avraham Avinu, as he walked to the Akedah, nothing stood in his way, because he loved Hashem. And limitless, not only a unwavering love, but a profound, passionate love, fervorous love towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Gets up early in the morning, like someone's enthusiastic. Someone who gets, for example, wins the lottery as an example. And he said, you could pick up your lottery at 7 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, you're not sleeping much the night before. You're probably waking up early because it's an exciting piece of news for you. So you get up early in the morning, you can't sleep practically. Avraham Avinu gets up early in the morning to go to bring his son to the Akedah. He loves HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's crazy about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Avraham Ehabi. True love. Alter Rebbe had the Rambam famously in his Tshuva Perik Yud. Take a look at the Lashon. Avraham Avinu's love. It's like he's preoccupied about a certain individual. Never goes off his mind. Avraham Avinu, the Eibishter never leaves his mind for a moment. He's so in love with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the Eibishter says it. Vayashkim Brahma Baker wakes up early in the morning. And then it says, Vayach Vishas Chamayre. There was a shura, there was a chain of command. Tell this individual, your accomplice, please, I got to leave 3 o'clock in the morning because he decided to Vayashkim Brahma Baker. So he goes ahead and tells one to the other and then to the individual, which is standing next to the donkeys, saddling the donkey. Well, like we say, warm up the car. Avraham Avinu go right in and get on his way. But Avraham Avinu loved HaKadosh Baruch Hu so much, he was mekalkel l'shur. He jumped, he ignored the entire chain of command, he saddled a donkey. That's how much he was so enthusiastic and passionate to serve, to do what Hashem wanted. So this is the expression, Ava mekalkel s'ashura. It breaks, because when there's love, it breaks the chain of command. The Rebbe says the person does it as well. He loves himself so much. So there's a chain of command. There's an order established by HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. The person has an issue. There's an order. There's a shura. But the Rebbe is getting at, in a negative way. Avo, in this case, you love yourself so much, you're waiting, you throw out the whole shura, the whole system, this which I mentioned to you in the previous part, and you are rushing, skipping it all over. Let me get the easy way. Go to the easy way. Go to the tzaddik, ask him a bracha, and give him a bracha, and then he's all good. Because tzaddik goes HaKadosh Baruch Hu mekayim. He said that the reason why you're jumping to that, you're mekalkel, you're ruining the chain of command. That was the messages of Torah, how to deal with your issues, and you're running to the tzaddik is like because you love yourself so much. And the Ksusei Nayim, this is a cover up of the eye. not to see the truth. Because you love your bodily life. And even though you not just love your bodily life just for the sake of pleasure or bodily life, no, L'Shem Shemayim, truth for the happiness sake. Because you want to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with tranquility and full mind and calm and so on. So it's all for heaven's sake. L'Avedus Hashem, to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with a body, with a fiery flame, a passionate flame, shall have his gdola, a grand flame, meaning to say you want your heart to ignite towards Avos Hashem. And you know, if you don't have parnasa, it's kvetching you. You can't daven, you can't learn. So I'm going to jump to the get the tzaddik's bracha and go over the regular, which Torah is suggesting me, which the Alter Rebbe is going to quote now from Torah. Because I love myself so much, I love my body so much, true L'Shem Shemayim for heavenly sake. And true, I want that tranquility of body to be able to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with a great, passionate expression towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But the Alter Rebbe says, you're loving your body too much. And to the extent you're ready to jump over the norm, which is Avos Nafsham as Hashem, more than your soul loving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's a problem. That's a problem. And therefore, because they want that tranquility, the body, again, even for the godly and sake and godly purpose, they will have that calm in it to learn Torah and do mitzvahs and so on. To daven without such distractions, worries, true preoccupations. And therefore, you're upset when there's pain of the body, chas v'shalom. And you see as the Alter Rebbe, when he's chastising his flock, he says, Hashem yirachem, may Hashem have mercy on you. I don't identify, I don't make light of the pain of your body. Shall Hashem have rachmanis on you. But what you're doing is, you're not staying focused. You're not staying focused. As Alter Rebbe is going to go on to explain, as we look forward to continue learning. Meantime, Hashem yirachem, Hashem should have mercy. Every individual, Am Yisrael, and collectively, all of Am Yisrael. As Alter Rebbe benches and doesn't make light of a Yid's tzara guf, even though he says that you're just overlooking Torah's messages, you're jumping the road, you're jumping the chain of command. Torah has so much to tell you how to straighten this out, but you love your body so much, even to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, even to be able to daven with passion, and love HaKadosh Baruch Hu with great passion. And you're the benefit of your body for the Shem Shemayim, for the sake of heaven. But you're exchanging it for the Avos Nafshim as Hashem. And therefore, the soul loving, your godly soul connecting with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Therefore, you have a deep problem. You identify so evidently the body and the body's pain. And you're ready to travel to the tzaddik to make that jump, not through the normal messages of the message of Torah, which is going to get you through this. But the Alter Rebbe right away says again, Hashem yirachim, and I'll make light of it. Shall Hashem have rachmanis, have